If I ask you, who is the worst killer in Dead by Daylight? Who comes to mind? Maybe Legion, or Nurse, or Bubba, or maybe even Nia.
Huh?
Who do you hate the most? I imagine that's a pretty dividing question in the community. So over the past month, I've set out to prove definitively who is, out of the 34 playable characters that we currently have available, the most hated killer in Dead by Daylight. And the results are finally in. But before we get on to that, let me explain how I went about doing this. I set up a competition of heats, and each killer was randomly assigned to an initial starting group. I then put up the votes on YouTube and Twitter to allow the community to decide who their most hated killer is, with 2 killers from each group stage progressing onto the semi-finals, 1 killer from each semi-final progressing into the final, and then 1 killer eventually being crowned the winner of the entire event. Or the loser, however you want to see it. In total, 159,641 votes were cast to decide on the eventual winner. And this whole thing was made even more interesting when another content creator by the name of Jay Can't Sleep actually decided to stake their entire Twitter account on the outcome, deleting my account if Pinhead doesn't win the whole competition, so you all better vote him. And I promised that I would hold her to that, so here we are. But what do you guys think? Will Cenobite win the competition, or will it be someone else and we'll be saying Peepo bye to Jay's Twitter account? Let me know your prediction in the comments, and remember to like the video and subscribe if you enjoy the content. But without much further ado, let's get into it. So kicking off the competition, we saw Trapper, Clown, Ondio, and the Nemesis go head to head. The Trapper received 9% of the vote, Ondio received 11% of the vote, Nemesis received 19% of the vote, and Clown smashed the competition with 61% of the initial vote. That means that Nemesis just about joins Clown in the first semi-final. Group 2 saw the Oni, the Cenobite, the Artist, and the Executioner go head to head, with the Executioner receiving 7% of the vote, Oni receiving 9%, the Artist receiving 21%, and Cenobite, again just like Clown, sweeping the competition with 63% of the vote. By a pretty wide margin even for second place, Cenobite and Artist continue on to the semi-final. In Group 3 we had Ghostface, Hillbilly, Doctor, and Dredge. Now, perhaps not surprisingly to most people, Hillbilly was at the bottom of this group with 7%, Ghostface was next with 13%, then it was Dredge with 25%, and the Doctor took the lead with 55%, meaning that him and Dredge take a spot in the next semi-final. Now, Group 4 and Group 8 were a little bit different in that they only have 3 killers, but 2 of the 3 killers will still be going through. So in Group 4, we saw Blight, Death Slinger, and the Wraith go head to head. Slinger came out with 27%, Wraith just about tipped it with 29%, meanwhile Blight took the whole thing with 44%, meaning that Blight and the Wraith progress on to the semi-final. In Group 5, we had the Plague, the Trickster, the Shape, and the Cannibal. The Shape received 6% of the vote, Plague received 21% of the vote, surprisingly, Cannibal received 27% of the vote, and Trickster actually beat him with 47% of the vote, which if you consider how many people complain about Bubba, was kind of surprising to me, but I guess Trickster is worse in some way. Either way, both Trickster and the Cannibal still progress on to the semi-final. Group 6 featured the Legion, the newest killer, the Knight, the Hag, and the Huntress, with the Huntress receiving 9% of the vote, the Knight receiving 22% of the vote, again kind of surprising to me, Legion receiving 29% of the vote, and Hag receiving 40% of the vote. The Knight somehow manages to not progress on to at least the semi-final, and Legion and Hag instead are the ones to keep going. In Group 7 we had the Nightmare, the Nurse, the Pig, and the Demogorgon. Now, I do want to mention here that before I did any of this competition, I actually put up a poll on my YouTube which asked a simple question. Should the Nurse even be featured in this competition, or will it just be kind of unfair? And my community voted on Nurse being in the competition. It was a most hated killer competition after all. It would be kind of weird to take Nurse out of the running just because we know that she's a little bit disliked, let's put it that way. So back to the results. Demogorgon received 3% of the vote, Pig received 9% of the vote, Nightmare received 21%, and as predicted, Nurse received 67% of the vote. In this round, we had just under 12,000 votes, which means that around 364 people voted for the Demogorgon. And if you were one of those people who did that, I would very quickly hide from the rest of the community because I think they're going to come for you. In Group 8, we saw the 3 killer vote for the final time, which featured Spirit, Mastermind, and Twins. Mastermind received 21% of the vote, Twins received 30% of the vote, and Spirit received 49% of the vote, meaning that the last spots in the semi-finals are taken by Spirit and Twins. All right, moving on to the semi-finals, only 2 steps away now from finding out who is the most hated killer. The first semi-final saw Clown, Nemesis, Cenobite, and Artist go head-to-head. Nemesis received 8% of the vote, the Artist received 12% of the vote, Clown received 29% of the vote, and sweeping the competition with 51% of the vote is the Cenobite, meaning that the first spot in the final is taken by none other than the spiky bald man himself. In the second semi-final, we saw Doctor, Dredge, Blight, and the Wraith. I was kind of surprised to see the Wraith in the semi-finals at all and didn't expect him to go any further anyway, which was proven when he received 13% of the vote. The Dredge received 19% of the vote. Blight received 23% of the vote, and Doctor received 45% of the vote. Now, if you watch my content at all, you will know that my most hated killer to go up against is the Doctor. It's like sensory overload for me. I don't like it. It kind of annoys me. But I didn't think that was like a shared opinion. So I was really shocked when Blight didn't come out on top, considering how many people complain about him being so powerful. But either way, Doctor takes the second place in the final. The third semi-final saw Trickster, Cannibal, Hag, and Legion. Now, I was really excited to see the results of this poll because I figured it would be one of the closest ones of the competition. And I was definitely correct. With 18% of the vote, Legion took the 4th place. With 22% of the vote, Cannibal took 3rd. With 1% more at 23% of the vote, Hag took 2nd. And coming out on top and taking the 3rd place in the final was Trickster with 37%. I was shook. I can't lie, I was shook by that. That really took me by surprise. The last semi-final saw the Nurse, the Nightmare, the Spirit, and the Twins go head-to-head. The Twins received 15% of the vote, Spirit received 17% of the vote, the Nightmare received 22%, and Nurse, probably not surprisingly, took the last spot in the final with 55% of the vote. Well, here we are at the final, and surprisingly, Jay Can't Sleep's Twitter account still may be in the clear. We have Cenobite, Doctor, Trickster, and Nurse going head-to-head to find out who is the most hated killer in Dead by Daylight. Now, this vote was really interesting. As I mentioned earlier, I put votes up on Twitter and on YouTube, and it's not often that the two sides will disagree on the results of the votes. But in this one, they did, to the point where I think we're going to have 2 separate awards for the most hated killer. We're going to have YouTube's most hated killer, and then we're going to have Twitter's most hated killer. So let's start with YouTube. In 4th place, with 10% of the vote, was the Doctor. I'm trying to get a little bit of suspense in, just don't mind me. In 3rd place, with 16% of the vote, was the Trickster, which means that it's between the Cenobite and the Nurse. And I can confirm that on YouTube, 2nd place received 28% of the vote, and 1st place received 46% of the vote. So it was quite a substantial margin between the two. But in 1st place, and YouTube's most hated killer, is the Nurse. So yes, congratulations to the Nurse for being the most hated killer on YouTube. But, I did say that the results on Twitter were different. So let's find out what they were. So when it comes to Twitter, in 4th place with 13% of the vote was the Doctor. In 3rd place with 19% of the vote was Trickster. So those two remain the same. But with 43% of the vote, in 1st place and taking Twitter's most hated killer award is the Cenobite. So congratulations to the spiky bald man. He took Twitter's most hated killer. And I'm kind of curious as to why it was so different between the two. What makes Twitter's opinion Cenobite and YouTube's opinion the Nurse? It's kind of weird. Now, in the interest of keeping it fair, and I know a lot of you probably want to know the answer to this question, what was the combined vote? Who was the winner overall? In 2nd place was the Cenobite, and Nurse was the most hated killer overall with 45% of the total vote. But I thought it was interesting to highlight Twitter and YouTube's differences because if you recall, Jay Can't Sleep was staking her Twitter account, but Twitter's winner was the Cenobite. So I'm going to leave it up to you guys. Do you think that Jay Can't Sleep should sacrifice her Twitter account, considering that on Twitter, the most hated killer was the Cenobite? Let me know in the comments what you think. Jay's Twitter account is in your hands. That means I don't have to make the decision. And also let me know what you thought of this whole competition. I really enjoy doing these votes, and I think in the future, I'm very interested in doing a most loved killer and a most loved survivor. So if you guys want to see that, let me know in the comments as well. And also by leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. It really helps me out, helps the channel grow, helps me know what content you guys like so I can keep making it. So if you could just take 2 seconds to do those, that would really help me out and I would appreciate it. But for now, let's give a big round of applause to the nurse and to the Cenobite for being the worst killers in Dead by Daylight. And I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. Go out there and be the best damn Cranksy you can be. Spread some positivity, and I'll hopefully see you in the next video or the next stream. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.
So let me break it all down for you. I ain't never giving up, I ain't never giving up. I'm taking that crown from you.